Time to swear. No, I am.
We are. Okay, we are ready for another live stream on a Thursday evening with a great guest tonight as well. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Les. Been a busy week, and I'm feeling like I'm just about to get in there, feeling a lot better in myself. You had a good one?
Yeah, not too bad. Picked up a nice little ghost story this week, and we've got the first-hand witness on film, so I'm quite excited about that. Couple that with another few stories, and we've got some up there.
Absolutely. As we're talking, there's some messages just popping up in bottom corner from WhatsApp, and a guy called Adam's telling me that he's looking at orange orbs over Bridlington. Now, yeah, seriously. Now there is a military exercise going on over Driffield Way, but it's something we can talk about on Sunday, because I filmed quite a lot last night, and I know that Linny did, who were up there with me. But like you said, we've got a great guest tonight, and it's a little bit different. I'm really sort of looking forward to speaking with Andy. But before we do that, shall we have a look what we've got in?
Let's have a look who's on the chat tonight, and welcome everybody for coming into the chat as always.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Alison doing moderating and Lee doing moderating. We've got Patrick Daniel, Chris the Daz, Diane Farrell awake, Mag Sue, Mrs. Elaine Linny, Ian Linny will be in, and I know Mia Girl's in June, so it's good to see you. I've never not got to say your name before, but we didn't know. I didn't connect to it well before. Scotch Mist. Let's have a look. Steve O, Tonya Morrison, Karen Bayman, Dragonborn, Moondog. Let's have a look. Sober Carper, Zeno, Tino. That rhymed, didn't it? N.I. Grandma. And Martin Abbas, good to see you, Martin. And Stargazer Eternal. And it'll just keep going up. We're going towards 150 people here now. James Soames, I've not seen that one before, so good to see you, my friend. Don't forget, sometimes we get 300 people in chat. Why not just press like? You know, it's easy. I noticed we only get about 70 likes. And
I think people just forget. And
absolutely. You're not obliged to do anything, but if you sat here for an hour, 2 hours, and are you entertained, press like. It's easy. So where we're going with this then?
So we've got Lee moderating tonight, and you probably, I don't know if you said earlier, we've got Alison as well. So thank you to you both. And I think without any further ado, without wasting any more time, we're going to get our guest on tonight, Andy.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'll see you guys a bit later.
All right, let's tell that. Now then, Andy, good to see you.
Evening, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, excellent. And tonight, as people will know, we're talking to Andy Hardy, former soldier who served in the British Army. And how this came about, last week I talked about the wild camper on Dartmoor. And Andy got in touch and said, I'd be willing to share a few stories of my own from Dartmoor and a few other things whilst serving in the British Army. And I kind of jumped at the chance. So, Andy, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's brilliant, mate. And so before we jump into the stories from the Army, how did this begin for you? Did you always have an interest in the unexplained, or?
Yeah, I did, mate. It kind of first started with paranormal stuff, really. My gran was probably the biggest influence in my life with the paranormal stuff. She used to do Halloween parties every year, and so she was kind of my introduction, I suppose, to maybe like the paranormal, that side of the world. And the first thing I can remember with my gran was she was in the local paper for having a haunted wardrobe. Is the first thing, is the first thing I can remember. And so the story behind the haunted wardrobe was that she used to do cleaning for other people where we lived.
Yeah.
And she used to do a lot of cleaning for a solicitor. And when he died, he had no family or no children, so he left her quite a few things. And one of them was this old mahogany Victorian big double wardrobe.
Right.
So it got some. Obviously, my gran took the furniture, and the reason why she's in the paper was they'd had it for several months, and the doors on the wardrobe itself, they ended up tying together with rope, because the doors used to open and slam constantly during the night. And my gran was very into this type of thing, so I can't imagine it bothered her that much, which is why she kept it all those years. But at one point, she'd walked past the double wardrobe, and she used to have a mirror down the middle. And when she looked in the mirror, she looking back at her was she described it as an old Victorian maid,
right,
with a bonnet on, and that's what she saw. And then I couldn't find out how the reporter heard about it, but then the reporter turned up. But apparently he come back quite a few times. He come back 3 or 4 times, so he must have been intrigued by it.
Yeah, and obviously she only saw it in the mirror. She never saw it looking directly at it, just in the mirror of the wardrobe.
Yeah, just in the mirror. Yeah, in the mirror of the wardrobe. Yeah, but I mean, she kept it, Paul. She kept it up until she passed away.
And who's got it now?
Well, so when my gran passed away when I was 7, and nobody wanted it, so the removal men just took it in. I don't know where it went, Paul, to the tip or to another house got resold.
Isn't it fascinating? I wonder if it's gone to somebody's home. I wonder if somebody else is getting some kind of weird experience from that piece of furniture. And
I'd love to know. I'd love to find out.
There's a reason I'm talking about this, and I know it's all about you tonight, Andy, but I've got to get this in.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Earlier in the week, Linny, who comes onto the cliff tops with me, before I knew anything about this story, we're talking as we do, because most of the time, if you're up there for 2, 3, 4 hours, there's nothing happening. And he was talking about I think it was his great grandma and his mum would be his mum's mum, who's in the chat, Mia girl. That's why I kind of pulled that out today. They had a haunted wardrobe, or his great grandma did. And I just thought, what is the chances? I've never heard of anybody talking about a haunted wardrobe. And here we are. Linny told me this story. And obviously June's told it her son, Ian. And basically they acquired this wardrobe. And I don't want to get this wrong, but spirits, apparently, great-grandma saw spirits coming out of it and going around the bedroom. And she thought that they were trying to get, I think it would have been June's little younger brother. And she thought that that's what they were attracted to. I'm not going to say trying to get. I want to get this story right. And I think June's going to share it with us, even if it's a pre-record. So your haunted wardrobe story has been a little bit of a tripwire, or Linny's has. I don't know how it's come about, but I just found it fascinating. I mean, other people, this is something I'm interested in. Haunted pieces of furniture. It's like I said to Ian, Andy, in today's age, I think people would have probably, I don't mean I'd have wanted it, but people would have wanted that. You've got a tool there, haven't you? You've got something there that's a gateway to some other realm, if you know what I mean. And I've thought,
definitely.
What is it then, do you think? Let's just throw that one out before we get to your stories. Is it the entrance? Is it the door? Is that something to do with it? Or do you think it's just the actual item itself that's just got some possessions in it?
I think, personally, I think it was the woman that my gran saw in the mirror maybe had some kind of attachment to it, whether it was the maid who cleaned it, or there was some affection or some affinity to the piece. But I do believe it. My gran always used to say to me, "You'll only see something if you truly want to believe it." She's like, "It's all good and well saying, I want to go here and I want to see this, or I want to go to Bempton and I want to see a cryptid." You can say that to people, but she's like, you truly have to believe, and you truly have to want to see things to be able to see them. And that was why she said that nobody had ever seen anything or experienced it with the wardrobe, because they didn't really want to. Yeah,
and she makes a good point, doesn't she? I mean, that makes you can also look at it with another thought process and think, are we creating it then? Are we actually creating these things ourselves, which don't make them any less true? But you think about the power of the mind, and your gran saying you can only, if you truly want to see something, you've got to believe it. And it's fascinating. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. Let's move forward a little bit then, and tell us about when you were age 5. And
so I've only ever moved house once, Paul. Well, like my parents have. So I'm from a place called Thornaby, and we used to live in Mansfield Avenue, and so that was my first home. And when I was 5, I woke up one night to go to the toilet in the middle of the night. And I can't remember what time it was. It'd be 30 years ago now, but the memory's still vivid. Like I could recount like it was yesterday. And I come out of my bedroom door, and then I turned right, and then the bathroom door was right in front of me. But just to the right, there was like a little instep where my mum used to keep the washing basket, type thing. Yeah. And as I've come out of my bedroom to go to the toilet, a figure stepped out of that gap and blocked, and so then he was stood in front of me, and then the bathroom door was behind him. But the lantern light was on, so I was scared in the dark then. So the lantern light was on, and I always describe it as the devil, is what it looked like. So it was close. It must have been back then 6.5 feet tall. So Mum and Dad lived in a Victorian house, so there were tall ceilings. So he must have been 6.5 foot tall, and the eyes were jet black, and it had not massive horns, but the horns were there, so you could see them. They were noticeable. And the best way I can describe his physique is, you know, back in the day, if you took all the clothes off an action man, and he was just smooth.
Yeah.
That's what he was like, smooth. But his body was purely human, except colour? He was orange, right? Like a dark orange version on red.
That must have been terrifying as a 5-year-old.
Oh, petrifying. And so I'm stood there, and I can remember it. I still get goosebumps now thinking back about it. And as I'm stood there looking at it, 'cause I'm frozen, and then he reached out to grab me, and then I've like come out of whatever I was in, trance or being frozen or whatever, and I've turned on, I've bolted into my mum and dad's bedroom, which was obviously behind me, and I'm screaming. Obviously, I'm petrified, and my mum and dad are trying to calm me down. And when they finally calmed me down, I was saying, "I've seen the devil. I've seen the devil." And my mum was trying to calm me down, like trying to put me back to bed. And they've both put me back into bed. And as my mum and dad were leaving, I heard my dad say to my mum, "How does he know what the devil is?"
Right.
Where's he got that from? Because none of us had taught him it. You know, none of. I don't know where on earth he went. But that was instinctively. That was what I said it was. That's what it felt like.
That night then, Andy, I mean, you're taking you back 30 years, but that must have been really traumatic, and the nights afterwards, because you'd have probably been, your head would have been on swivels, or your eyes would.
Well, I don't think, I think about now, Paul, we moved pretty quick though, Paul, like pretty rapid. I want to say within 2 weeks we were gone, and then my mum and dad moved to the house they're still living now.
Nothing to do with any of that though, they were moving.
No, so directly related to that.
Really?
Yeah, related to that. Yeah, so we moved, and they moved to where they live now, and they're still there. They've been there for what, 30 years now. So
does that not make you think that they might have experienced something and just never said anything? So before, so my dad got with, so my mum already lived in that house when my dad met her, and then my dad obviously married her, and they had me. But my mum said that she was laid in bed one night when she lived there on her own, and she felt something heavy on her feet. And when she woke up and looked down the end of the bed, she said there was an old woman in a white nightie sat on the end of her bed, like sat on her feet. Right. And I said to her, what happened there? How did it go away? Because I was raised Catholic. She said, I just started saying the Hail Mary. And she said, eventually, the pressure lifted. And when I opened my eyes, the ghost was gone. Right. Okay. And have you ever, what you saw at the age of 5 then, Andy, have you ever thought to yourself, I don't want to think too hard about this because I don't want to see it again? Or do you think it's just totally gone now? It was kind of, it's always been there in the back of my, in the back of my mind. I've thought about it probably quite a lot. More so maybe as I got into the military and I was doing stuff in the military, and it was always in the back of my mind of why did it come that night? Why did it come to me? I suppose a lot of questions people have when they see something, you know, of high strangeness, as you talk about. But weirdly, I don't talk about it to random people because I appreciate how crazy it sounds. Obviously, I don't mind talking about me because it's like-minded people who watch the show. But weirdly, I can remember I must have been about 15 or 16, and the rule in my family was at the time, when you got to 16, you could make your own mind whether you want to continue going to church. Up until then, we had to go every week. And I can remember I must have been 15 or 16 because it was coming up to the time when I had already decided I wasn't going to go. And one of my cousins, who was a lot older than me, he must have been maybe 25-ish, he come back randomly and started going back to church.
And I said to my mum, why's our Daniel started coming back to church? And she brushed it off. Oh, there's no reason why he's back. He just wants to come back to church. And the way she brushed me off made me think there's something else to it.
Yeah.
And then later on, like when people were still outside church talking and nattering, he come up to me and he asked me what I saw when I was 5.
Right.
And when I told him, I never forget, like he went white, like it's like as the expression goes, white is a ghost. And I said to him, "You've seen something, haven't you? That's why you're coming back to church." And he said, "Yeah, I've seen something," but he would never tell me what he saw. He just asked me what I saw, and I told him. And judging by his reaction, he saw something similar. He didn't see what I saw.
You've not been curious enough in all these years to maybe ask him again.
I can remember asking him years later when my granddad passed away. I remember bumping into them and asking him. Weirdly, it was after. No, sorry, it was when we had your dad, and it was after the stuff in Afghanistan that we'll get into later.
Yeah. And
then that was when I started getting into this stuff more. Like, what did I see? When did I see it? Why did I see it? Those types of things. And I bumped into him there at the funeral, because obviously with the military, you're away all the time. You don't really see the people anymore. And I remember asking him there, and he just flat out refused that anything ever happened. I didn't see anything. Nothing happened. I don't know what you're going about. And I know for a fact, Paul, something happened, because I know it happened to me when I was 5. Yeah. And I know for a fact he asked me, because if he hadn't have asked me, I would never have, I wouldn't remember the encounter of him randomly being at church.
Then you wouldn't have been bringing it up with him, would you? No, that's true. And it must have been traumatic. That's all I could think, for him not to want to talk about it, for him to just want to absolutely cut it out or shove it so far into a corner in his mind that he just don't want to pull it out and air that kind of trauma.
And I think, yeah, I agree. And I think because he was an engineer, Paul, like quite a high up engineer. And I think for him, with his scientific brain, I think maybe for him to try and rationalize what that was, his entire structure would have been challenged, because he was very scientific, methodical. This is black, this is white, there's nothing in between. So I think that's why he was so adamant that nothing had happened, and he wasn't willing to go back to it.
So do you want to jump forward then to when you started in the military, or is there anything else that you want to add?
No. So weirdly, Paul, like we moved house, like I say, 2 weeks after that happened, and then nothing happened in that house ever. Up until nothing ever has happened to me in that house. No,
so it's not like you've got an history of things happening on a regular basis. There's 2 events in childhood that are notable, and then you join the British Army, and you've basically I don't know, you contacted me because of the story I told about Dartmoor the other day. And I'm intrigued. So and people, if you're listening to this, I don't know what's going to come out here, to be honest with you. So I've not got a grasp of what Andy's going to be sharing with us. I latched onto the haunted wardrobe simply because, unbelievably, Linny had been talking about a haunted wardrobe earlier in the week, and I thought, what are the chances? So we'll drop the wardrobe now, and not literally, but and we'll jump to military.
Yeah, so I joined the military back in 2009, and after training the things, I jumped on. I wanted to go and complete another course, and it was we were based at Dartmoor. And the unique thing about Dartmoor, I was based at Oakhampton Camp, and that camp was kind of like a transit camp. So there was never anyone. So we were based there permanently, but there was staff there maybe from say 7 till 7 maybe. So from breakfast till tea time, and then after that they would leave. So there was at any one time maybe 20 lads on that entire camp, and it was pitch black, like nuclear black, because it was obviously the middle of Dartmoor. There's no light pollution. It was pitch black. And one of the first things that ever happened was, because we were out on the train, we were out in Dartmoor every day, Paul, every day, map reading, navigation, exercise, everything to do with that. And because we knew it like the back of our hands, one weekend, I would have been 21. One weekend, we were all getting ready, because we were all 21, then we're all young lads. We're going to go out on there for a drink down Exeter. And so, which is why I remember it. And we were all getting ready, and it was midday. So we're all getting ready, we're all having a shower and whatever. And the sergeant come in, the training sergeant, he said, look, lads, he said, I need you to put your patrol gear on. A trail runners went missing out on the train area. There's 20 of you here. He said, like the search and rescue haven't got that many people, and it'll take them a while to get here. They've asked if you can go out, look for him. If you find him, happy days. We'll take you from there. So we put all the gear on. We just went off in twos. So there's 10 teams, and we've all got them out of Dartmoor. Some lads have said we'll go towards Yestor. Some lads have said right, we'll head down to the dam, and we just spread out all over the shop. And it was 2 lads who'd headed towards Culver Steps. If anyone's been to Dartmoor, know it's quite a prominent feature. So these 2 lads have set off to Culver Steps, and they've got there. Can't see anything, couldn't see anyone, but they've stopped to have a drink. And as one of the lads has stopped to have a drink, dropped his water bottle. As he's went to pick it up, he's kicked the foot of the trail runner, which has made them both jump. And when they've looked, he's covered in leaves, moss, totally covered from head to toe. Couldn't see him. And the lads were amazed, especially what we were doing, how well he was camouflaged and concealed. It's like a professional job. They couldn't see him. So they've scraped all the leaves and the moss and everything off him. And they're giving him a drink of water. And obviously the lads are saying, how did you get here? What happened? X, Y, Z. He said, I was on the trail. I went running, slipped down by Culver Steps, twisted his ankle. And down there, the weather, it was a winter time, Paul, but there was no snow, but the weather was bad.
Yeah.
And he's went over his ankle, hypothermia started setting fast. And the reason why that story gets crazy is because he told the 2 lads who'd found him that a big hairy man had found him on the moor. Right. And to protect him from the elements, he covered him in leaves and moss to protect him from the elements and to keep him alive. Now, the lads obviously found him. We get a message to say, right, he's been found. The 2 lads had found him. They're making their way back down to Oakham to camp to where the ambulance and like the base type thing was set up. So they managed to get him back there, and the lads have been, we all went back to like the barracks room sharing, and we're all taking our gear off chatting. And these 2 lads come in, and I've said to them all, how was he? And lads said, oh yeah, he's fine. He's dehydrated and he's a bit of hypothermia, but he's going to be all right. And he twisted his ankle, could be broken. I'm like, all right. And I used to read like ghost magazines and paranormal. So the lads knew I was into like that type of thing. And as the other lad came in who found him, said me, oh, go down and talk to him, man. He's in the ambulance. And I was like, why would I want to talk to him? And he said a Bigfoot covered him over in leaves and moss. And he said, as he said it, I've said to the other lad, Andy's gonna be over the moon with this, with what he's telling us. So I've shot out of the barracks to run down to the car park to speak to him. And by the time I've got down, I could see the ambulance away up the road, taking him to hospital for his X-ray. That's the only regret, Paul, I've got in my military career, that I didn't run down fast enough so I could talk to the bloke and say to him, you know, what did you see? What did he look like? Was he big? Was he small?
So there's a few things here. Once again, we've got coincidence. What's the chances in that vast expanse that they've actually kicked his foot? They're there. Quite everything's perfect, isn't it? You know what I mean? That it's just absolutely perfect that they would be in that spot where he's being covered over. It just seems too perfect, doesn't it? And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just love these coincidences. But what did they think then? They just thought he's just hallucinating. He's just
They just brushed it off as he was dehydrated. He had hypothermia. But then so my argument was, if that's true, lads, if he was dehydrated and hypothermic, why would he cover himself in leaves and moss that well?
Had he stripped his clothes off?
No, he still had his clothes on.
Because with hypothermia,
they strip off, don't because they start to feel warm. Yeah. No. He had all his clothes on. He was just totally covered in moss and leaves.
So I don't know Dartmoor then, Andy, and like you've just said, you know that terrain. You could probably go now because nothing will have changed, and you'd still be able to find your way about there. Just for those that don't know, me included, give us an overview of the terrain. Now, do we have any wooded areas? And
there is a couple of there's a couple of wood blocks, but the main body of it, Paul, is pretty much is pretty sparse, but pretty barren. It's definitely not flat. It's undulating. You've got a couple of tors there, and you've got quite a big dam there. But by and large, the wood blocks are mainly at the south and on the edges. Most of it is pretty open and sparse. There's nothing much there really. In terms of wood blocks that we used, I mean, there's woods there, but nothing like you would get in Dalby Forest, or no. There's nothing that scale.
Do you know, because John, who saw this strange thing on Dartmoor, obviously I've only got a little bit of phone footage as he's sort of focusing on this and watching it from other side of this stream, and it looks lush, it looks dense with vegetation, but obviously if you're just in a little bit of woodland with a phone, you're going to, in summertime, when things are growing, it's not summertime, but when things are growing, you're going to see that, aren't you? But it's fascinating. Did it put you on edge when you were out there on a night then, or were you thinking about it constantly? Obviously, there's no bad intent from this thing. If it's
no. It was like I say, it was a good story in terms of like there was nothing scary about the story. It was just fascinating. In terms of putting me on edge, it didn't put me on edge. It was more fascinating, really, more curious of what would do it. There's other stuff I'll go on to that made me, to put the fear of God into me, and there was some really strange stuff that happened. But that was a nice story, really, just really interesting and really curious.
So do you want to jump onto some of the other stuff? I'm thinking the shadow figures and other things. Yeah, please do. And any questions? Oh, sorry, before you start, but any questions? Put them in capital letters for Andy, and if Les can come in whenever he wants, but let's just go with shadow beings. And let's share
so the shadow figures, mate, you would be seen by someone pretty much every exercise. They were pretty prevalent, and one of the main ones was we were on exercise, and because like I said, it was so sparse. Quite a few times you're in a harbour area where you would be in a triangle formation, and that's where you would sleep, do your admin and those types of things. And I was usually on that course, I was usually like first in charge or 2IC. So I was always doing admin or looking after lads and trying to do leadership how I thought it should be done. Yeah. And one night, I wasn't on stag. So stag duty, if anyone doesn't know, is on a night time, you had 3 points. 2 lads would man each point, and that would be from when the sun goes down until the sun goes up. There was somebody always at times to the camp. And there was a lad who was down there. And what would happen is you would be on for 2 hours. But so once you've been on for 1 hour, they were like overlapping. So someone would be on from 2 till 4 with someone who was on from 1 till 3, and you would overlap. So somebody always had 2 hours worth of night vision when your eyes had adjusted. So, and it was about midnight, and I was going round to my stag point. My lads are running, and I was just going down there, Paul, about midnight because the weather was rubbish, and I was taking them a brew to try and keep the spirits up type thing. And one of the lads who was there was really struggling. So I said, look, I wasn't on stag that night. So I said, look, you just go back to bed. You've only got an hour left. You will get your head down. I'll fill in for you. When your bod comes, I'll just go to bed. No big deal. So as I'm laid down there in the prone position looking out, the lad next to me wasn't saying a word. And I says to him, are you all right? Are you good type thing? And he went, where we were, there was like a large boulder. I would say it was probably big enough to cover a person, Paul, but we're not talking like a Stonehenge type thing, just something where you could hide behind. And he said to me, there's somebody behind that rock that keeps peering out. And I said to him, how long has it been peering out for? And he went, for the full hour, almost the full 2 hours I've been here. And I was like, right, okay. So I'm sat watching it. It must be half an hour must have went by. And he's getting ready to leave to finish his post. And I thought, I just think he's tired and there's nothing there. And as I'm thinking it, something peers out from behind the rock. And it was, so when you're over there, Paul, like if it was an instructor, you would know the shape The uniform has a certain shape, webbing, Bergen weapon. You would have known, and it wasn't. It was just a. There was no features to it. It was a humanoid figure, but there was no features.
No.
And it had something on its head, Paul. But still, this day, I don't know what it had in its head. I don't know whether it was a hat or whether it was a horn or what it was. I can just see it was maybe must have been about 100 meters away, 150 meters. So it was far enough away where, and in the dark, you couldn't make anything out. It's that humanoid figure. So when he left, I said to the new lad who come in, I thought, I'm not going to say anything to him because I don't want me to put something in his head that I think maybe this guy's putting in my head, and I'm just seeing things. So I didn't say anything, and I give him his brew, and then I was getting ready to go, and before I left, he said to me, "Will you wait here until the other guy replaces you?" And I'm like, no one's ever bothered, Paul. It would be like maybe a 2-minute thing. I would leave, and as soon as I left, someone would come and fill the spot. But I was like, yeah, I don't mind. But what's wrong? He went, there's something behind that rock.
Wow.
That keeps peering out. I said, what can you see behind the rock? And he said, it's just he said a shadow figure. I just see a shadow keeps peering out from behind the rock. And I was like, right, okay. And then he said, there's something on its head, but I don't know what it is. So he had the exact same experience that I had. So I was like, right, okay. So the new guy come in, and I went back to like where my admin area was, and I laid there. I'm trying to get sleep. I didn't usually have a problem, and it was going around in my brain for ages. What I saw. So I got up again, and it must have been about say 2-3 in the morning, and I've got up and I've went over to them, and I said, "Are you all right, lads? You know what's going on?" And they didn't say anything that happened. So I was like, right, okay. So I went back. I went to sleep, and I've woke up. It can't be much longer, Paul. Maybe an hour later, and an entire herd of Dartmoor ponies had ran and shot into the middle of our harbour area, and laid down, and they weren't moving anywhere. So me and the other ICs jump out. I was like, where on earth have these Dartmoor ponies come from? So I went over.
They'll be semi-wild as well, won't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and if you were ever on exercise, Paul, and mooching about, they'll run away from you. They had no intention of being interacted with humans or any of us, especially when they get used to us firing weapons and bangs and things going off. You know, they had no intention of interacting with us. So I went over to my lads and I've said, where on earth have these Dartmoor ponies come from? And the two lads have said they came flying from where that boulder is. They've come bolting. He said, I couldn't see them before that. But he said they've come bolting from beyond that boulder. He said they've come flying straight over into our harbour area, and they've just laid down. They won't go anywhere. And they stayed there, Paul, all night until we left.
When you say a herd, then, Andy, how many? Roughly, I know you didn't count them.
There must have been more horses than there was us. So there would have been So there would have been 18 of us. So there would have been more than 18 because they were everywhere. Like it caused carnage. Havoc. They were walking through bashes and they were tripping over comms land that we had. They caused carnage in there. There was a lot of them.
Yeah, so obviously you might not remember this, but what did your superiors think when following day?
Yeah, so the instructors came out, and the instructors come out on the morning, and obviously they've seen the absolute mess that was caused in the harbour area, and we tried to sort it out a little bit in the middle of the night, and the instructors come over and they're like, what on earth are all these Dartmoor ponies doing in the middle of the harbour area? And the instant you say, what one of the lads said, they came bolting from behind that boulder, and he said, I don't know what you want us to do to stop a herd of Dartmoor ponies. So nothing to do. And then one of the lads went to say, well, we saw a shadow figure behind that boulder. And before he could say it, one of the other lads was quick to say, do not say that to the training sergeant, because you will get destroyed if you say there's a shadow figure on Dartmoor. You know, it was just, and I still think there's a bit of stigma there now with talking about things like that in the military. I'm enjoying this, honestly. I hope other people are. And Les is here, so we must have got some questions, Andy. Are you good to answer a few? Yeah, that's fine, mate.
Yeah, we've got questions in from your earlier stories, so I just don't want you to go too far in front and we'll focus on some of these. So I've got a question from Zeno, and welcome to the show, Zeno. Hi, Andy. Objects are known to contain remnants, emotions from previous owners. Did you manage to find any information about her? She sounds attached to because it was important to her and her life.
Is that about the wardrobe?
I would think so.
We're going straight back to the wardrobes on some of these questions, Andy.
No, Zeno, I never. Like because it was so long ago. I'm desperate to find the article, and I'm trying my best. As soon as I get the article, I'll happily come back on and talk about it, and I'll send it to Les and Paul, and they can put it on the social so you can all see the picture of my gran in the wardrobe. Because my gran passed away when I was 7, I haven't really got that much to tell you, mate. Apart from, like I say, it used to belong to a solicitor, and it was a big old Victorian mahogany one. And obviously this is getting. I'm asking my uncle and my dad, and this was obviously 30, must be 30, 28, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't really, mate, I've much to tell you other than what I've told you, unfortunately.
Thank you.
It's okay, Andy. Not so much a question this, but a little story from Stan Smith. My mate was convinced a suit he bought from a charity shop in the late 80s was haunted. It would turn up in different rooms of his flat.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
It's very interesting one. And we've heard other stories similar, haven't we, Paul?
We have. Are you sure he didn't fall asleep drunk, Stan? And I'm only joking, but no, it's interesting. In fact, one of our regulars in chat told me a story about a garment that turned up in another country after they'd been up at Bempton about a month ago. He's wrote it all up for me, so it'd be something that we might want to share. I don't know. I'll speak to him. I'll speak to him about it.
Okay. Scotch Mist is saying, do you think mirrors are portals for the paranormal? Have you got a thought on that, Andy?
I definitely think I think there's something to do with mirrors that alters something, and I don't know whether that's maybe the way we perceive our own space and time, whether the way we perceive our environment. I think it does something that unlocks something. I don't know whether I would say they were portals, but I do think it's definitely an aid, and they definitely allows you to see things that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Tonya is just saying objects held dear can be haunted or hold an attachment. And yeah, very much so.
I'll throw this one out in chat. What's the word? What's the name when mediums will hold on to something and they'll get a memory and a feel of who owned it and things? There's a name for it. I can't think what it is. But somebody's going to tell us in chat.
Somebody will put it in the chat. Okay. Karen Beerman is asking, Andy, do you feel your encounter at 5 opened up something more than what you were brought up around with your family? Has it left you more intuitive with a knowing?
Ooh, great question. There's been certain points, Karen, in my life where, and I'll tell one that happened at Dartmoor as well, where I found myself in pockets of, don't know what you would describe them, energy that hold a certain feeling, whether it would be fear, anxiety, but they are specific to one location, so you can walk from here through the other side and out the other side. I do think it's allowed me to see a lot more and experience a lot more than I would have otherwise. And I don't know, maybe that's because I saw that means, like my gran said, I believe and I want to see stuff. I don't know whether that's an element of it. I have thought for a long time that happening to me is why I could see a lot of stuff on Dartmoor that other lads couldn't see. I do truly believe that. Seeing that at 5, I think, has opened me up and made me more intuitive to things that other people just weren't receptive to, whether they wanted to or not. I just don't think they had the ability. I'm not saying I'm a psychic or things or people talk to me, but I believe I'm more open than quite a few people. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. I'll tell you what, you are coming across as being very level and down to earth, and yeah, I like this.
Okay.
Psychometry was the word, Les. Thank you, Tonya.
What is the word, Paul?
Psychometry.
See wise. Paul, Andy, and Les, do you think animals see the paranormal Often my cat will look at things I cannot see.
Yes.
With that one.
Yeah, I do. I used to have a German Shepherd, and he passed away maybe 2 years ago. And he used to freak my girlfriend out a lot because he would stare at one corner, he would growl every now and again, and I don't know whether they see stuff, but I think because they rely on their senses more, and we obviously rely on our brain more, I think their senses are more highly tuned to their pick up on stuff. So if something was there, a spirit or whatever it would be, I feel like their senses pick up on stuff, and because it's out of the norm, that's what they react to. So I think their senses alert them to things that we can't see.
Yes, it could be changes in air pressure or anything.
Yeah, stuff like that, mate. Yeah.
Perceive, yeah.
Yeah, and also when it comes to, I think cats, obviously they've got a different visual spectrum than us. So obviously, they can see a lot better in the dark. And yeah, it's, and as you say, the senses, the hearing for a lot of these animals is probably about 100 times greater than what humans are.
Really, I didn't know that. Listen.
Well, I'm just plucking that one out, but it's considerably higher. That's yeah.
And I see.
Somebody put me right in that.
It's not a
on that one.
question, this one, but black and blue mirrors are the real rabbit holes. Face orange, TV shape. It's crazy, psychotic patriot follower only. I said that. So you got your question in, but you didn't put it in caps. But yeah, the black obsidian mirrors, the black mirrors. But yeah, go on, Les.
Alderham is asking, what was Andy's cap badge, and did he serve in Operation Herrick?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, mate. I was in the Royal Artillery. I was in 2 regiments. I was in 40 Reg. They were based in Northern Ireland. They got disbanded, and then I was in 3 9 Regiment Heavy Artillery, which fired missiles, and I was on Op Herrick 18.
Nice one.
Okay.
He loves the nitty gritty, does Al? He likes to. You find out what you're about. Well, not what you're about, but whether people are on the level, and he'll know that you are.
So Jack 1948 is asking, hi Paul and Alexander, do you think UFOs could be interdimensional, like cryptids, rather than visitors from a distant planet?
Yeah, I generally don't think. I really don't think anything's off the table, mate. When it comes to that phenomena, I think it could be what you're saying. It could be. I generally. That's why that subject is so fascinating to me, because it could be a million things of what's going on, what's happening, which is what piques my interest and what keeps me wanting to find out more. But it could be, mate. It could be very well that.
Well, you know what you and your friends or your guys in army saw peeking out from behind the rock or behind the boulder. To say that weren't cryptid related, and the shadow beings. It's almost like something that's not quite formed. It's just there, just like a tracing inside our reality. It's a fascinating.
I mean, with that one, Paul, behind the rock, and I don't know why I feel this way, but I back then I had a feeling that was connected to what I saw when I was 5. Now I've got no evidence for that. You know what I mean? I've got no proof. That was just what something inside me felt that those two things were linked.
Just before Les gets to the next question, there's 2 of you there. Did anybody feel like advancing towards that rock? Nah,
not a hope. Nobody was walking towards. Nobody was walking towards that rock, and when there's 18, 12-year-old lads who are in the military, you do get a sense of feeling invincible. That is a true thing. Like you can do anything, but nobody on this planet was going towards that rock. Me included. There was no way on this planet. I was advancing towards that rock to see what was really behind it.
Kicked out a real feeling of foreboding, then, hadn't it? Whatever it was.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, Paul, if you could have seen some angle, like a piece of clothing or anything, if you could have seen something that would make you think that it was a human, whether it was, I don't know, like a wild camper who was just interested in what you were doing, if there was some element of him that made you think, then maybe you would have walked over and said, look, mate, I appreciate your interest, but you'll have to go here if you want a wild camp or,
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. All right, Les.
Okay, so Rod is asking, Andy, has all this changed your life? What do you believe in regards to the paranormal? And do you think it's all connected?
Yes, million percent, everything's connected. I don't believe if I hadn't have seen what I saw when I was 5, I don't think I would have seen and experienced all this stuff that I have during the course of my life. And my personal belief is, once you see something that changes your belief system in terms of what you get taught when you're growing up, there's no such thing as ghosts and that type of thing. Once you see one type of phenomena, it doesn't have to be a ghost or a UFO, but I think once you see one thing and you believe it and you know that there's something else out there, all the other phenomena is then fair game. That's what I believe. I think it's all interconnected. Once, say for example, I saw that thing when I was 5 or whatever it is. As soon as I saw that, all the other phenomena, shadow figures, UFOs, the Dartmoor ponies, once that happened, I believe that all the other phenomena knows that you're hooked into it. I think it's like, I do believe that it's all interconnected somehow.
Yeah, because there's I mean, it's off the scale what you saw as a little boy there, isn't it? I mean, imagine seeing something like that. That's just absolutely. I wonder if it was just a set of circumstances that you happened to be going to the bathroom, I don't know, while that thing were there. It's just weird. But anyway, we've done that, haven't we? And I know Les has probably got another question. Have you, Les?
Yeah, and unless you want to run on with the show, Paul.
Let's do that, and we'll get some more questions in a moment. And I'll just do a few more names. We've got Karen Bierman, Tonya Morrison, Space Cow, John Paul Body, Alison, Sam Shelley. Good to see you, Sam. Sober Carper. And I know there's loads more here because we've got nearly going on for 300 people in here. But Margaret Webster, thanks for the support, guys. As always, give it a press and a like and subscribe if you want. We tell you every time. It's totally free. So let's move on then. We aren't getting too graphic. What are your observations of the other animals on Dartmoor before we get to Afghanistan? And did you observe anything with the sheep and the other farming animals?
Yeah, mate. So sheep were quite prominent on there. Like Dartmoor sheep, they're like an old unique breed. But you would see dead sheep daily, like various stages of decomp. What ones that had been there a long time and the bones had been bleached. You would see ones that were half eaten, some with limbs missing.
That's where I'm going. So they were predated on.
Oh yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, there was something there that was eating and hunting the sheep, and it become one of those things where you saw it that often, you kind of desensitized to it. Because, like I say, you would see it every day. There were various stages. Bones were scattered. Some had some had limbs missing. Some had been half eaten. Some had certain things missing. But 1,000,000% there was something. So there was something hunting the sheep there. And there was,
so obviously, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we hear a lot of farmers are struggling, and back in the day, I'm assuming they were. So how would they have managed not to go under, losing so much livestock? I mean, it's not something you would have been looking into back then, is it? Anyway, but
no, it's not. I mean, the only thing I can think of, Paul, is that when you were ever on the range and you were live firing, if a sheep ever came onto the firing range, like it would just stumble through. Obviously, they would shout, "Stop, stop, stop!" But if everyone come through and it ended up getting shot, I think at the time when I was in, the farmers used to get, I think, twice the value of the sheep.
Right.
Now I'm not saying that obviously we weren't doing anything to the sheep, but I do think there was maybe an element of when those sheep were being there was something happening to the sheep, whether the MOD on that training land were giving those farmers money and saying that there was some element of to keep them, because like you said, there was every day, Paul. That's not even an exaggeration. Every day you would see a different one in different stages of decomp. Yeah.
It's just one more thing then, and I know some people don't like us talking about things like this, but I mean, it's there, and it might touch on paranormal. We don't know, but you just touched on a little bit and then moved forward. Did you see any and we'll not get too graphic, but any strange wounds that didn't look like it were animal predation?
I mean, there was the odd one where it looked like where it looked like something had been like limbs had been ripped off rather than eaten. There was times where it looked like something had physically grabbed hold of the leg and ripped the leg off rather than
Because
You know,
the thing is, Andy, we wouldn't. What have we got in UK? We'd have had fox and badger, wouldn't we?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, up there would have been, yeah.
There'd have been nothing else, would there? So what
No.
could actually do that? That's it. Kind of makes your head shake a little bit. So shall we move forward then? Shall we? Because I'm conscious. We're like, you know, it's 10 to 7, isn't it? And I know he's going to have more questions in the next 20 minutes or so. So shall we? Unless you've done with UK, let's jump onto your time in Afghanistan.
Well, I tell you what, Paul, because I've got two good stories about Dartmoor left.
Please do. Let's do it.
Yeah. So we want another exercise, mate. And obviously, when you're on exercise, it's always light and noise discipline, noise to minimum, like, well, not noise pretty much non-stop, and then light discipline. And we used to use, as I'll know in the chat, if you were going to use night light, that'd be red light. That was you. If you used white light, you were gone. And again, I've jumped up in the middle of the night. This wasn't too late, though. This is maybe about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I've just walking down the line, make sure lads are squared away for the next day, that type of thing. And we were actually in a wood block this time. And as I'm walking up to the stag point to make sure the lads are all right, out towards further deep in the wood block, I can see what I thought at the time was somebody with a red head torch on. And it was moving erratic, where I thought that it was somebody had lost something, maybe a glove or a magazine or whatever. And they were trying to find whatever it was. And it was flashing as if it was going on and off. And then it would stay on, and then it would be erratic, as if someone was waving the head about trying to find whatever they were looking at. And this is what I said to you and Les before, but when we were offshore, where not everybody would see it, which is what we were on about earlier with the questions. Only certain people see certain things. Yeah. And the lads on stag were right next to me, laid down. And I've said to them, can you see that beeping idiot with that head torch? He's going to get his knack there. Like, we're going to be in trouble. And these two lads were like, can't see anything, Andy. Not a clue what you're on about. And then as I'm talking, the red light came back on. And they were like, nah, still can't see anything. I was like, well, I can see it right now, so I'm going to go and tell him to get himself back in the harbour area. So anyway, I storms off into the middle of the woods, and I'm probably at a 10 now, how angry I am with what this guy's doing. So I've stormed off. And then as I'm walking out to it, the light goes off, like the head torch. And as I shouldn't have been shouting, because I would have got in trouble myself for doing this. I'm shouting, I've already seen the head torch. That's what I'm shouting out. I've already seen the head torch. I've already got you. So turn the head torch back on so I know where you are. And then as I'm getting out, I'm getting less and less confident of finding the guy with the head torch. And then obviously as I'm getting out, I'm thinking to myself, I stop because I feel like I'm at where the head torch was.
Yeah.
And I can't hear anything. Like, absolutely nothing. I can't even hear the lads doing admin or getting into sleeping bags back at the harbour. I can't hear anything. Everything's dead. And then at this point, my anger levels dropped, and honestly, I'm starting to get worried now that I've maybe got myself into something, especially after a couple of weeks ago we've seen that shadow figure behind the rock. I'm starting to panic a bit that I've maybe got myself into something that I shouldn't be. So there was no one there anyway. There was absolutely no one there. So as I've turned around to come back, all I can describe it is like a bubble of fear. So as I'm walking back, I could physically feel walking into it. Like, you know, if you would walk into, I know you can't feel it, but if you walked into fog, but I couldn't see anything. And I've walked in, and as I've walked into it, I've never felt fear like it, like genuine terrified fear. I suppose on par with when I was 5, like that level of fear.
Yeah.
And I've ran because I'm petrified then. And I thought, if I get back to the harbour area, at least there's 16 other lads there, and be safety in numbers. So I've took off at full pelt in the woods to get through, and I've maybe ran, I don't know what it would be, maybe 20 metres. And the instant I could feel coming out the other side, and fear was totally gone. Totally gone. It was just this 120, I say 20 metres, it could have been less, could have been more, Paul, because it was night. But that solid section that like I say was just a bubble of pure fear. I don't know if there was anything in the bubble, you know, whether there was a shadow man there that I couldn't see, or there was something, but there was a solid bubble of fear. And I've never ever experienced anything like that since.
Well,
it was just a block of fear, is the best way to describe it.
Do you know Mark, who comes onto Cliff Tops with us?
Yeah.
You might have heard me talk about this. And people in chat, well, he'll wild camp in Scotland. He'll go all over the place, up onto moors by himself. And he went up to Bempton, probably. Linny might put it in chat. It's at least 3 months since. And he talked about going up there and just he walked, instead of walking down to cliffs, he walked across. He says, and he encountered just a wall of fear. He says, and it was just terrifying. And he thought someone was going to jump out of it at him. He felt eyes on him. He felt everything was just oppression and fear. And he walked out of it. And like he said, and I was telling him, I'd experienced it years ago near Danes Dyke when I was at Ashbridge, and it were absolutely frightening. And Steve didn't feel it, though. That were odd, and he were with me. I don't know how that worked, but any other soldiers experienced that?
No, because obviously I stormed off to try and find that.
Rephrase that. At any other in any other times, did they ever come out with anything?
No, nobody ever. I mean, to be fair, Paul, I never told anyone about that either. No. I shot back into the harbour area, and I acted as if nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? I wasn't telling any of the lads that I just walked off into the woods, chasing a red light, and I ran into a bubble of fear. Like you would have been left out the park.
A macho thing, like you said, at that age, you thought you were invincible, and you don't want to show this weakness. Would that have been a sign to show weakness?
No, I wasn't too bothered about what the experience, Paul. It would have been the ridicule. You would have been, oh, you're the crazy guy. You know what I mean? You're the one who's into this. You run off into the woods changing weird lights. You know that I wasn't bothered about like the weakest macho point. It was the fact you would have been labelled with that, and that would have stuck with you through your career, whatever unit you went to.
So obviously, don't go any deeper than you want to go with this. So how do you think somebody would be viewed in military today, years later, if they started talking about seeing weird things, weird experiences? Because when you told me something about Afghanistan, I touched on the blue lights, and I've already spoken to somebody who served in Afghanistan who were talking to me about the blue lights. I want to get him on here, which we might touch on. We might get to it, we might not. But how would it be viewed today, do you think? I know you're not in a position to say, but
I don't think so, Paul, judging by the fact that I spoke to a couple of lads today who were still in. You know, just I said, what do you remember about what happened X, Y, Z? And they told me a few things from their perspective that I hadn't saw. But they're confirmed what I was saying tonight. And they're very much where the viewpoint of this doesn't go. They were happy for me to talk about it here, because obviously I'm not naming anyone, but they're like, this doesn't get spoken about in units. We don't address it anywhere. It's very... They're only saying it for the respect they had for me. They were entertaining me. They were like, no, it's. I suppose, Paul, maybe the UFO UAP thing with all the disclosure stuff, maybe lads would be a bit more open to discussing that. Yeah, but they definitely ain't talking about pockets of fear and shadow people on Dartmoor.
No, it's fascinating. And there's still, I take it, there's still military activity up there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would assume so. I would assume they're still up there, Paul, running stuff.
And if anybody watching this, I don't necessarily mean served with you, but had some similar stories that they wanted to share and wanted me to pass it on to you, would you be?
Oh yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, definitely, by all means, yeah.
Okay, then. So we'll not jump to questions just yet, unless Les has got a pile of them. But we'll go overseas then now. So tell us a little bit of. Oh no, you'd got another one, hadn't you?
I've got one more, mate, from Dartmoor, which is a good one, and then I'll move on to Afghan.
Yep, it's good.
So we were on exercise again, and we were in this wood block, and it was the middle of the night, and when you were up there, especially when you're dealing with, we were blank firing. You know, if you got contact with you were firing blanks and things. But as I'll know, things still need to be serialized. Like you were good for the admin instruction, you were going to get attacked at this time, and you were going to do this, and it was all serialized. Because firing your weapon was obviously a big deal, whether it was blanks or lives. And it was the dead of night. It was really quiet, and I was IC a 2 section again, and shots started firing out. So I've jumped up, I've jumped out my basher, and I can see that the firing started from my stag point. And then as soon as that happened, all the lads were out with their bashes and the bivvy bags, and they're returning fire from that was the action. It's not the point. If you get contacted, the lads are laser press and fire down. Then the other ICs will see what's happening, take a moment, then we'll put the plan from there. And as I'm putting my boots on and I'm looking out, and obviously you can see the muzzle flash, and all I can see is muzzle flash from my guys. I can't see anything at all 360 coming from anywhere else. So I'm shouting ceasefire, and the other ICs have clicked on their shouting ceasefire. So everything's went quiet. And I'm like, I cannot see anyone out there, whether it be instructors, people playing enemy. There was absolutely no one out there. And I've said for the next half an hour, we'll keep lads at stand to that can watch their arcs, that can make sure that nothing's going to happen. And I said to the lads, look, you might as well pack most of your stuff up because the instructors are going to come out now. Because at night time, you would hear that for miles. I said, the instructors are going to come out here. And I said, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Because we've opened fire here, and it's going to be bigger than Ben Hur this, because there's no one out there. So I'm at 12 out of 10 now, being angry because it's my guy on stag, my two guys who've opened fire.
And you're going to be held as accountable as them, aren't you?
Yeah. So I went over to scream and shout at the lad who's on stag, and as I'm about to, he was like, it was an instructor. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? It was an instructor. And he went, there was an instructor X. He was like, instructor X comes walking through the woodblock. I was like, right. He's like, and then you have a halt, a challenge, and a pass. So I would say halt, who goes there? I would say, for example, Paul Les, and the reply would be Andy Hardy, and I would know he was a friendly. So the guy on stag has said that this Bombardier X has responded with the correct password. So he's like, all right, okay, let his guard down. This instructor has then started firing with his weapon, started firing blanks into the harbour area. Obviously, the lad on stag has started returning fire, which has then kicked off this whole scenario. So I'm like, well, so then I'm in two minds of bollocking him, of shouting at him. So if that's true and the instructor's still out there, then we could be getting bumped, and we could be, there could be something on here. So then I go over to, so then one of the other ICs comes over and he says, look, mate, he's like, my two lads on stag heard your lad issue the challenge, and they heard the reply from Bombardier X. They heard it. So I'm like, right, he's obviously telling me the truth. So then at this point, me and the other two ICs were like, right, we're definitely going to get bumped. Lads, pack your stuff up. It's going to happen. Nothing ever happened, Paul. Nobody came. Nothing happened. But the weird thing about that story is, so we were all already packed, adamant that something was going to happen because of what happened. As dawn's coming, it's usually when you get attacked. Well, lo and behold, that's when we did get attacked. So that's when lads fired, and then we got that was the end of the exercise. We got bumped, did a couple of RVs, and we ended up back in camp at the end of the exercise. So me and the other ICs are getting a debrief to tell lads, and before we go in, I said to the two ICs, look, I'm going to take on the chin, and there's no need for everyone to get done over here, especially your lads when it was man who opened fire. So we go in, and he starts doing this debrief, the sergeant, and he's like, yeah, great exercise, lads, actions on were correct, everything was good. So I'm stood there and I'm thinking, well, it's going to come now. Like at some point, we're going to get it here, and nothing got said. Nothing. So these two, the two lads leave, and I'm stood there, and he's like, "Hardy, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "Were any of the instructors out on the training area last night?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Was Bombardier X out on the training area last night trying to bump us?" And he was like, "No." He's like, did something happen? And I was like, you didn't hear anything last night, anything. So and he was like, no, it was all quiet last night. And I was speechless because I thought, there's no way on this planet nobody hasn't heard that, the amount of fire that got returned.
So a lot of rounds got discharged.
Oh yeah, a lot did. And I was like, there's no way on this planet that nobody. And the weird thing about that is, so when I asked about Bombardier X, he said, why are you asking about him? And I said, well, one, the lads thought they spoke to Bombardier Rex last night. And he's like, Bombardier Rex is away because his wife's having a baby. So he's a Bombardier Rex is even here. So, and then I was like, I'm racking my brain. I'm thinking, well, technically we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
But that in itself was probably the weirdest thing that happened to me on Dartmoor, Paul, out of all the stuff.
What I mean, obviously, you've had loads of time to think about it, and I think if you'd got a firm answer in your mind, you'd be saying it. But what do you think? It was some kind of time slip? What happened?
Not a clue. If it was my lad in isolation who'd opened fire, I would maybe say sleep deprivation or he was tired, But the fact that those other two guys independent to him said they heard him issue the challenge, and this Bombardier Rex reply throws it out the water, because obviously there was 3 people then who'd heard and witnessed the same thing.
Then your superior's not hearing any fire, not hearing
nothing at all. And obviously at night, Paul, sound travels even further. So how on earth? Nobody. No, I mean, there wasn't even any reports from anyone complaining about the noise. Like, that in itself is the craziest thing, that nothing happened to us and nobody heard a thing.
Fabulous, interesting. Before we, oh no, we're not. We're going to do lights and UFOs on Dartmoor, but we'll go to Les first.
Yeah, we're just at the point, Paul, in the show where we need to do a little bit of self-promotion for Truth Proof. And let's have a look. Here's the website address for anybody who doesn't know it. There it is on the screen now. And tell us a little bit about what people can find on there, Paul.
Right, okay. So truthproof.uk, lots of reports on there. First-hand accounts of people's experiences, UFO-related, cryptid-related, ghosts, anything that you've got that you want to share, send it to truthproof.uk, and we'll put it up there with your name omitted if that's what you want. We really appreciate that. If you're interested in buying the books, the paperback copies of Truth Proof 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Night People, go to the website. They're there, and they're available on and they're available on eBay, should I say. The Kindle versions, obviously, are on Amazon. If you want the hard copy of the DVD Wolflands, which myself and Les have made, that's available on truthproof.uk and on eBay. And that's about covered it. And one more thing, we're also doing a live stream tomorrow on the last transmission, talking to Nathaniel Gillis. So if you want to move over to that tomorrow night, please do. Please join us. We'd welcome that. And we'll also have our own live stream Sunday night, just free and easy. It's all down to you guys, questions and answers. So that one will be going forward Sunday night, and we've got some shorts to put out as well, haven't we, Les? So,
yeah, and I'll just pull you back to tell us a little bit about the stratification tool that you and Martin have developed.
Yeah, that's correct. So obviously it's a question and answer. It's questionnaire. We need to get Martin back on, fill in a few blanks and basically your sightings of the strange and unusual, your experiences. There's quite a lot to fill in. Fill as much as you want in. If you feel like omitting some of the questions, please do. It's totally confidential. Truthproof.uk. Go on there, download the document and send it in, and let's be hearing about your sightings, and we'll see if we can see any patterns that are forming. We need a large volume of information before we can determine if there are any significant patterns or little traits that keep showing up. And Martin's put lots of things in there that are a little bit, I won't say quirky, but different, that might reveal something. He's worked hard on it, Martin. And we really could do more and more reports to see whether we can show up any patterns.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to contact you a little bit more in a confidential manner, Paul, they can directly email you on this address, can't they?
That's correct, Paul Sinclair, ilf@gmail.com. I've loads and loads of messages and reports coming through. And I mean, some of them I've been answering at 3:30 in the morning. I'll be honest with you. I've been getting up to the bathroom and then looking at my phone. I've been laid there replying to people because it's pretty full on at the moment. But I'm a little bit behind because of that injury that I had. But I'm feeling loads better now, so should be catching up on things. But yeah, thanks, Les. Thanks for putting email address up because I'd forgot about that.
Okay. Do you want to run a little bit more? Or do you want a couple of questions?
Well, let's finish Dartmoor, and it might be quick anyway. You just hang around here, Les, because
Yeah.
Strange lights, spheres of light, UFO activity, anything like that on Dartmoor?
I never saw any. I never saw any UFOs, Paulie. You would say like what you would, think things in the sky. Never saw anything like that. There was a couple of times where, especially in the beginning, where you like navigating in the daytime is pretty easy. You can see reference points and things, but navigating at night is a different ball game. So we did quite a lot of stuff navigation at night, and we'd usually be in pairs. And at the beginning of that, instructors would be in Land Rovers, and if you got to within a certain distance, they would flash the lights to say, "Yep, you're within a certain area. Come us, we'll give you the next grid," type thing. Obviously, as the better you got, the instructors didn't do that. You just had to go from point A to point B. But in the first time we started doing that, there was a couple of times where you would see in wood blocks or different points where you're going to, you would see balls of light, and you would assume, like you would always see them like in threes, there would be 3 flashes. And you always assumed it would be instructors. And you're like, oh, we're right. So you would race off to where the 3, where you'd seen the flashes of light, and there would be nobody there.
A similar light intensity then? A similar...
Yeah. So sometimes you would get stuff that would brighten up and then go down, and then brighten up and go down. But on head torches, you can cycle through how bright you want it. So sometimes you think maybe that's what they're doing. They're just going through the brightnesses and bringing it down to try and get your attention. But you would run over there and there would be nobody there.
How much of that do you think could be attributed to you guys being tested by another part of the military?
What, by a different unit?
Yeah.
Interesting, mate. I never thought about it. I never thought about the only... I suppose it could be, mate. I mean, there's definitely a possibility. I mean, how well we knew that area and how fit we were, you'd have to be a good outfit.
Get away, yeah.
You'd have to be a good outfit. And I mean, as we're taking off to get to the next point, because obviously when you do that type of course, well, everyone's competitive, everybody wants to win. So if somebody was doing that, they would have to take off, and I would like to think we would hear them taking off from the roads or run away. So that's why I don't think it was anything to do with that. I think it was, and weirdly as well, it was only ever one person who would see it, never 2. So it would always be, I would see it, and I would say to that, oh, they're over there, yep, let's go. Or he would see it, and he would be like, right, it's over there, we'll go that way. Never ever at the same time.
Strange, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fascinating, Les, isn't it? It's just brilliant. Go on, Les.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many weird stories come out with that area, Interpol, in recent years. And I think it was only last year I was hearing some more stuff coming out of Dartmoor.
Yeah, I think it'll run and run. And I'm hoping, after people have heard you, Andy, that, we might get some more. And we might, if we do, and somebody else wants to come on and talk, I think we should have you on here, and sharing conversation, because
by all means, mate. Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah,
toast, so to speak, tonight.
Yeah. So as what you said, Paul, if it sparks any memories in people who've served in the military, or even just been up there on Dartmoor, holidaying or whatever. Yeah. Stories. I mean, sometimes it's these little incidentals what add up to another conclusion, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it might just trigger a few things for people. And I see Dave Barker's in, Scotch Mist, Tonya Morrison, Blue Shift, Jay Beep, Steve O'Neill, and Awake. I'm awake at the moment. So, right, Mike
Stable Welshman, and have you ever seen anything that scared the living daylights out of you?
I think you did.
That thing I saw when I was 5, that thing I said looked like the devil.
Yeah.
That did. And to be fair, mate, that shadow figure behind the rock, that was pretty scary now looking back, and I think more so for the fact that it evoked maybe similar feelings to what I saw when I was 5. Like I said, I don't know why I think they're connected. I have no evidence, or I have no story for you to link them. That's just how I felt. But I would say those 2 things. The other things are pretty much, the other things, mate, are pretty much, I would say normal, but they're not normal, are they? They are normal compared to those 2 things.
I think we've got to go with his gut feeling, Andy, and so much telling you there's a connection. I guess we'll never know if there is or there isn't, but you're the one that experienced it, and you're the one that feels there's a connection. I mean, God forbid, I hope nothing else happens, but you might get an answer. There might be some kind of connection that shows up in later life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, hopefully, mate. Hopefully, yeah.
Well, not necessarily hopefully if it's
No, yeah,
right.
not hopefully, but I mean, hopefully for the answers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, and this next one from Stephen Collins is kind of following on from what you touched on earlier, Andy. Question for Andy: do you think the military know about this phenomenon? Do you think they will ever come forward and say yes, there is something?
No. The one thing that I would say about the British military, I think they are far more secretive than the US military, by far. At least you get little snippets, mate, with the US military. But I think maybe the nature of British people, like being stoic and playing things down, and being quite private people, I think that plays right into the military's hands. And I think that the stuff that Paul's covered for RAF Bempton and stuff, 100% the military know that something's going on, and they're investigating it. I mean, there was certain camps that there were certain camps that, so if you ever drove a vehicle from point A to point B, you would stop off it. Say, for example, we were going from camp and we were going all the way down to, somewhere down south, hand back in some type of equipment. On the way along there, you would stop off at different army camps and fill up POL points. You didn't use a normal petrol station. You would fill up on a camp, and there was some camps there that you would turn up to, and they were run by Americans, and you would have no clue either. That you would just assume that it was a military camp, and you would turn up, and it would be American people on the gate, and it would be like turned around and go. You're not allowed here, and you think, well, when did that happen? Because last time I came down here a couple of months ago, it was run by us, which is why we've come here to refuel.
Yeah, fascinating.
I've just got somewhat to throw in the mix here, Andy. You said a little bit earlier there that the US military are more open to opening things up than what the British military are. Maybe I'm thinking maybe that might be not so. It might be where the Americans are good at deflecting and putting out stories, to say, well, look here, but don't look over there. And
yeah, true. I do think maybe there's, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the US government now have that whistleblower policy for active military guys, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At 100%, mate, I'm pretty convinced that we don't have that over here. So if one of the lads from the British military said something, you would get nailed to the wall. So I think that also stops lads from speaking out as opposed to the Americans doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, Lee comes into the conversation here with I've heard a few stories that Bigfoot has saved people's lives. I read a story where a guy off trail broke his leg and a Bigfoot placed him back on the public pathway. That's interesting, that one.
It kind of ties in with what you said about the guy saying he was covered in leaves.
Yeah, leaves and moss, yeah.
It's fascinating, that one, though, isn't it? I mean, I'd not heard it. We'd not sort of talked about this prior to you coming on here, and so I weren't expecting that. But I just find it also incredible that, and I know I'm repeating myself, that they actually stood against him when that's the chances.
Yeah, and Steve-O is asking pretty much similar to what's been asked, but we'll put Steve-O's questions on the screen now. Common, do you think these strange encounters are within the military, and is it mostly kept quiet from the public? So really concentrate on the first bit of that question.
How common do I think?
Strange encounters
in terms of that, Steve, how common do I think they are? I think that is purely based on the person. Now, I honestly believe if I was never in the military, but I went wild camping in Dartmoor, I think those things would happen to me.
Yeah,
100%. I think it's person focused. So I suppose, mate, the answer to your question would be how many people in the military have that attracted to them, or have the sense of awareness to see things or look into that type of thing. Is it mostly? I would think, mate, everything is kept quiet from the public with the British military. Everything. I never, all my time when I was in, I never ever heard anything. Nothing slipped. Not even nothing. Not a single thing slipped. The only things that I know, things that I experienced, I've never ever heard anyone slip a little bit of something to me somewhere. So we saw this.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Okay, Alderham, going back to the rock. Could the person behind the rock have been SF or someone on selection for them doing survival / evasion stuff?
I suppose, mate. You know, I've thought about that myself, but it's the fact of that there was no. I mean, if there were, they were in a black wetsuit, like there was absolutely nothing on them, not a jacket, not a helmet, not a torch, not phone, not clothing.
That's
and they were slick. Like, I suppose the best way to describe it is like, you know, like a seal. Like, they were absolutely slick. There was nothing. There was nothing on them.
So were they? I don't think they were, but you've just said it. Were they shiny?
No, mate, no. It was like it was matte black.
It's just.
But it was.
Go on.
But it was darker than the night. Does that make sense?
It does, because the wild camper, who the reason you're here telling us this, when he saw that in that thicket of trees and that hollowed out tree, he said it went back into the darkness and it was darker than the darkness.
Yeah, that's what it was like, mate. Yeah,
it was almost the sheen to it. He says, I knew it was there. I could see it moving. He says, and I'd seen its form, but when it went back into the darkness, I just saw the darkness moving.
Yeah, that's what it was like, mate. It was like blacker than black, nuclear black.
Absolutely. Fascinating.
Okay. Zeno's got a question in. Seen a lot of vids of shadow entities peeking around corners with serious speed, as if they can feel when they're seen and they can't stay in view for a long. Can I ask if there are any mirrors were on site, Andy?
Ooh, what on the training area? No. I mean, inside the barracks, mate, in the bathroom, obviously you had mirrors where you had a shave and stuff. But out on the trainer, mate, there was nothing. I mean, each lad had a mirror on him. So you've got a mirror on your cam cream to put your cam cream on. But in terms of big mirrors and stuff, mate, there was nothing. There was nothing that I would know of.
No.
Okay, Tonya Morrison is asking: is there plane crashes, as in military, on Dartmoor? Do you know of any plane crashes?
Oh no, I don't know of any, Tonya. That's not to say there hasn't been, but I've never. There was never anything. There was never anything there whilst I was there.
Okay, and I've got to bring this question up because Dave asked it, but I know you've already given the answer, and Paul's already read a question out similar. David Barker, why didn't you and the other soldier go and look behind the rock?
Not a hope. Not a hope. Was that? To be fair, David. Not once did anybody say, "Should we go over and see what's behind that rock?" Really? Nobody.
No.
Like, so, I knew I was scared, so I wasn't saying to anyone, "Oh, should we go look behind that rock?" And so I'm only assuming that the other lads were scared because nobody suggested me to go behind the rock. Yeah, and so there was not from. There's no way I was going behind it.
Did you have MVGs as well to look at this?
No, mate, no.
No. Okay.
Yeah, well, Zaphod Beaverbrox is kind of following on from that. If you were carrying lab ordnance, I doubt it would have been an instructor behind a rock.
Yeah. I mean, when I say live ordnance, mate, it was only blanks. Yeah, you know what I mean? I wasn't live firing there.
But potentially, I mean, obviously, like you said, you weren't live firing. But potentially, if let's assume it were a wild camper, or somebody, they could have got hurt.
Yeah, they could have, mate. Yeah,
they could have got hurt. It weren't a wise move to keep peeping out behind.
No, mate, no, definitely not. I mean, especially when you had tripwires that would set flares off, and if you get burned by one of them, mate, it's quite bad. You know, we had. There was things there that could hurt you. Because I mean, there was a couple of times during the day where wild campers would bump into you. Do you know what I mean? You would tell them, "Please go this way, please go that way." So, I mean, if you're right, somebody being behind that rock, there was definitely potential for them to get hurt if they were a wild camper.
Absolutely. Okay, let's.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to move on now with Afghanistan, Paul.
Yeah, let's move on to Afghanistan, and then you come back with a few questions after that. Then, if you would please, Les.
Yeah.
Okay, then, Andy. So let's let you get a drink. And how many years were you in Afghan?
Oh, so I just did so there were just 6-7 month deployments, mate. That's what everyone was on. So I was there from like the back end of March, and I came back 5th of October, and that was 2013. So it was like a summer tour for me.
Excellent. So, what stands out as regards the unexplained, unusual sightings and strangeness in Afghan then?
So the unusual stuff, mate, then I suppose the unique outlook I've got in it is that most lads who go to Afghanistan, especially the infantry lads, are out on the ground and, you know, doing patrols and they're doing all their good stuff. And obviously they're concentrating on the ground and they're concentrating on what's in front of them, because obviously that's where the threats are. With me being based in a fob and firing missiles, I had a unique vantage point, because a lot of the time, mate, I was looking at the sky. I was clear, I was making sure that, you know, the turret on the launcher was clear. You had to laser range find things, you know, you had to put coordinates in, you had to do a lot of technical stuff to make sure the launcher was in the right place and all that type of things. So we were, and just for the chat, so, because what I'm going to talk about is important. So when you were laid on a fire mission, so say lads are in trouble and they would get on the radio and they would call us for a fire mission. Once that fire mission was green lit so you could fire, they would put in what was called a deconfliction zone. So it's, for what intents and purposes, imagine a skyscraper, but it's invisible. So you've got coordinates of a certain area that you aren't allowed to fly into, whether it be a jet or a helicopter, whatever it would be. Because that's where your missile's going and you don't want to be by the missile. So we were laid on a, so it was a fire mission that was predetermined before, so it was like time on target mission. So we were in the wagon laid, waiting for the time to say hit, I don't know, 1,300 hours, and then we would fire. And we were laid there, and we were laid on the target. And the way it was, there would be like 3 people sat in it. You had the DC, you had me, who was the operator, then you had a lad who did like the computer stuff, and you had a hatch at the back which was closed. And because the vehicle had no aircon, we usually kept the top hatch open to let what little breeze was come in. And we were sat there, and deconfliction zone was lit, everything was done, and we were sat there, and it wasn't me at first who saw it. It was a lad sat next to me, and he was sat there and he was looking through the hatch, and there was a metal sphere directly above where our launcher was, and it was directly in the deconfliction zone. I know I can't see it, but I'm imagining the deconfliction zone's right where my turret is, and it's going in that direction. That's where the missile's going. Say again, Paul.
2013. Yeah,
2013, mate. Yeah.
Yep.
And it was like I say, a metal sphere. I don't really know how to gauge, mate, how big it would be. I suppose maybe, what would you say? Maybe the size of, I don't even know, mate. Maybe the size of a Mini.
Okay.
Maybe that size, but it was pure. It was pure metallic, like it's the silver color, and there was nothing on the outside that you could see, other than it was this metal spheric ball.
And silence.
Yeah, silent. Yeah. So when you were sat in that wagon, mate, you would hear, when you were sat in launch, mate, you'd hear all types of stuff, like helicopters coming in, jets. You hear everything. Like there was nothing. So when he said, "What's that?" above us, I was doing something else. I was like locking stuff in, and I was doing stuff. And I'm like, "There's nothing. Like I can't hear anything." And he's like, "What's that there?" And when I looked up, I clocked it, the metal sphere, and it was there, mate, for maybe a minute and a half, just sat there. And I said, "What?" And then I said to obviously the DC, "What on earth is that?" And then he was like, "What on earth is that thing?" Well, what on earth is it doing there? Like you said, it was making no noise.
No.
So but nobody saw it enter, Paul, so no one knew where it come from, whether it just appeared or whether it flew in. Nobody knew. Faz spotted it as it was already there. So we get on the radio, and the DC says, "Look, there's an aircraft in the deconfliction zone." Find out who it is and tell it to move. And they were like, "There's nothing there." In terms of on radar and whatever the guys, there was like, there's nothing on what we have. There's nothing there. So as we were sat there, you had to plug something into the missile that you wanted to arm it. So I've plugged it in to arm it as I'm still looking at the thing, at this sphere. And I've told, as I've got it thingied in, locked in, I've told Faz to hit the switch to arm the missile. Yeah. As he's flicked it, that thing's went poof.
So there's an awareness.
And shot off, mate, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what's weird about this, Paul, either it didn't know about the deconfliction zone or didn't care. Right. There's one or two options, isn't there? Yeah. And all I can assume is it didn't know it, because because I suppose with that deconfliction zone, you would have to know the coordinates and you'd have to know where the deconfliction zone was. And I'm only assuming that those things don't go off coordinates or whatever. So it either didn't know or didn't care about it, but it obviously knew when something was armed to take off.
I wonder what that is. So let's assume it. Let's just play with the idea that it's otherworldly, and I don't mean from outer space. It implies that it knows what you're thinking, rather than it knows that that's armed. It's almost I suppose we could play with any scenario, couldn't we? And said, does it know? Does it know what you're thinking? And I've just got a nice message off Al. Thanks, Al, and I'll tell you later. And
I don't think. Sorry, cutting there, Paul. I don't think there was anything inside that sphere.
Really,
I think that was and I don't know why I feel that way. Yeah, I think 100%. I think that was a recon. That was a recon vessel or a recon device, like we would send out. Like we would send out a drone. I think whatever it was, sent that thing out. Because at the time when I was doing that job, I was only one of 6 people in the entire British military who could do that job. It was quite a cool job, and I was quite proud of doing it. And nobody had that capability that we had. So the Americans didn't have it. The Danish didn't have it. Nobody had that missile system except us.
I see. So obviously, you will never know. But did you got feeling it was military tech, or do you think it was something else?
Ooh, I always had the feeling that it was something else. Yeah, but like I say, Paul, I never got the feeling there was something inside it. The vibe, I suppose, for want of a better word, the vibe I got off it was that thing's a recon vessel of some kind, and it's checking out what we are and what we're doing. And like I say, as soon as it got armed, it must have some type of system on there, for want of a better word, that knew that missile was armed, and it just forgot.
Probably sound daft questions to some people. Did it go straight up or did it sideways? Literally,
no, sideways. Just went poof, just took off. But it took it took off, Paul, that fast. If you were a human inside that, you would have been mush.
Yeah, I would just say, you'd have just been,
because with the G-force that thing took off in, there's no way on this. That's why I've always thought there would be nothing inside it, human or otherwise, because the pressure would be, the G-force would be that much that it would just turn you into mist.
And once again, when it accelerated away, that was silent as well.
Yeah, there wasn't the sound from it. Nothing.
It's frightening, isn't it? Even if it's man-made tech, it's frightening to think whatever it is out there, and you could be out there on patrol, you could be out there wild camping, you could be out there in your camper van on a lonely moorland road, and something like this can just arrive and be there, and you wouldn't even be aware it were overhead.
No, I think the scariest thing about was, Paul, like I say, that missile that I was firing was like state-of-the-art kit. It was a really, really good piece of kit. Like I say, nobody else had it. And as soon as we hit arm and that thing flew off, I thought, there's no way on this planet we have, or the British military, have anything that could take that out. Nothing. No.
That's crazy.
And we were tipped the speed with what we had then, and that couldn't have took it out. So
it's incredible, and I'm sure that there'll be other people who've I wouldn't say experienced exactly the same, but it'd be interesting, Andy, if people come forward, and I'll be sending them your way just to.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah.
We put one on by, I'll not say the guy's name, but he'd had a weird experience in America at the World Trade Center, and then when he went due to PTSD, he went into a hospital in UK, and he had a terrifying experience prior to it in there, and he believed it were all linked.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you'd heard that one, but we'll tell you about it off air, because this is about you here, really. So what's this? Oh, Wolflands. Yep. Thanks for putting that on, Lee. Anybody who wants to watch this documentary that myself and Les have done, no fear in saying I think it's the best scripted documentary out there. And I've watched some stuff on TV and on YouTube lately, and I just think it's absolutely dire. So please.
It is. I'll just give it a plug, Paul. I've got my copy of Wolflands up there on DVD.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant copy. Yeah, brilliant documentary, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, we put a lot of work into it. I mean, Les did, I did, witnesses. Without them, there's nothing. That's as it is. We out them. They're into documentary. So same with one we're on with now. You know, they are king witness every time. But jumping from that, we've got like 25 minutes left. We will go to some questions before we close this down.
Yeah.
But let's carry on with Afghanistan. So what else do you want to share with us?
So I suppose, mate, the only other thing that happened when I was over there, I mean, the only thing is, if that wasn't good enough, the only other thing that happened was, mate, on the vehicle, you had 2 or 3 cameras. One was infrared. You know, you had one that was thermal. You actually had a normal one. And every day you would have to calibrate it, mate. So you would have to do a laser rangefinder to a point that you would know what the distance was to calibrate it. So it would say, for example, that's 21 mile away, for example, and you would know it was. So you know that the equipment was working. And there was numerous times, mate, where we were setting that up. And sometimes, mate, because the like most things technology-wise, mate, things would just go haywire sometimes. There was certain times, mate, where we would do it at night time to recalibrate it, and you would see weird lights in the mountains, blue lights, pulsar lights. A couple of times you've seen those lights that you guys see at Bempton, like the big amber ones. Yeah. And when you would see them on the camera, because it was me and Matt, the number 3, was doing it. You always used to say, who's stupid enough to be out there shining light? Yeah. Because whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, I know that's perspective. You're highlighting to whoever's out there where you are. Yeah. And before I flew out, so I flew into Bastion, but then when I flew out to the FOB that I was in, when I was in Camp Bastion, you had loads of local Afghanistan people who do all sorts, who were like local tailors, and they do stuff here. So I was getting some kit tailored, and he spoke really good English. He must have been there for, I would imagine, quite some time. It's probably decent, one of the decent jobs there. And I was talking to him, and I don't even know how we got into the conversation, but he mentioned the lights in the mountains, and I says to him, "What about lights in the mountains?" And he went, "Do not follow the lights in the mountains." Really? And I was like, "Why don't I follow the lights?" And he was like, "Good things don't come from the lights." He's like, "You don't follow lights. You follow lights, you go missing. Like, do not follow the lights." And then when I'd spoken to one of the interpreters that's asked him about them, what was the score with the lights, he said that I'm sure he said the blue ones were the jinn. That's what they believed. They had the jinn over there, and the blue ones were the jinn. And I can't remember now, mate, from memory, because obviously it was 12 years ago now. I can't remember what he said the amber ones were, but he said like the white light. He said those ones were there was something to do with mimicking, and they were the ones that would get you lost. Like, you would follow them all through the mountains, and then they would just disappear, and you would be in the middle of Afghanistan somewhere, and then something would happen to you.
Do you know there's so many similarities, isn't there, when you think about it? And you here in folklore, you've got will-o'-the-wisp, and you've got lights, and people saying, oh, in folklore, don't follow the lights, and they'd got some kind of, I don't know, knowledge of what the different coloured lights represented, and a kind of hostility from a certain temperature or a certain colour of light. And that kind of throws it for me, thinking to myself, are they individual things? Because when we look at them up there, and primarily they're amber or like a tangerine colour. Yeah. But we've seen red, we've seen green, over the years we've seen all sorts of different colours. And I've always thought that the blue ones, there weren't a good vibe coming from the blue light. Do you know? And did that ring true there, Dean?
Yeah, it did, mate. I mean, I've a couple of times I've put in the chat before. I don't know if you remember where I said, "Do you think the lights are decoys?" And the reason I said that was because every time I've experienced them, that's always what they've seemed to be to me. Whether I've been chasing them on Dartmoor, it seems like they've wanted me one place for no reason, because there's nothing been there when I've got there. But when you're in Afghanistan, like when the locals said that about lights, they've always seemed to be a decoy to something else. They wanted you in this place, so something could happen, or they wanted you over here. Whilst I'm looking here, what's happening over there? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I suppose, mate, because a lot of stuff I've experienced, I've experienced while I was in the military. I suppose that's why my viewpoint's always tailored that way. I've always looked at it through maybe a tactical lens instead of just like, you know, an ordinary one.
Go on, sorry.
Because I understand, mate, why people would follow them. Because when you looked on camera, when we were doing stuff, they were mesmerising. So 100%, I could understand why if someone was out there and saw it, they would be like, "Oh, I'll see what this is," type thing, you know.
So since leaving army, if you got chance to go out wild camping or anything, would you do that? Has it put a dampener on it? Any of this stuff that you experienced?
No, mate, no. A lot of stuff is. I still find a lot of stuff, mate, intriguing. I'm still very, very curious about stuff. I mean, the only things that have ever scared me is being like that shadow man and that thing I saw when I was 5. All the other stuff, mate, all the other stuff, mate, I find really intriguing, which is what keeps me, what like prompts me to come on here and tell people my stories, what prompts me to still go back looking for stuff. You know, I'm more curious, mate, and interested than I am scared with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So back to Afghanistan. So the local guys telling you about the lights and don't go up into mountains.
Yeah.
You know, you can say mountains, but is it really rocky and inhospitable terrain, or could you actually wander off that way? I suppose you'd be discouraged from wandering out of camp, wouldn't you?
Well, to be fair, mate, I never left camp, mate. My job was solely in camp, like I say, firing missiles. So I never left the wire. Where I was based, you could see the mountains. I mean, where I was based anyway was 800 meters above sea level. So it was pretty high anyway where I was, and then you would obviously the mountains, the mountains on top of it. So where I was, mate, was pretty rugged.
So am I misunderstanding this terrain, and probably people in chat as well? Is there anything there when you get in the mountains? Is the wooded areas and forested areas, or is it all pretty sparse?
I mean, in Afghanistan, mate, there would be wood blocks, but where I was, it was very sparse. Like there wasn't anything. I mean, you had the odd village and that talked about, obviously, you know, you had people up to stuff, but there was like there was no greenery, mate, or wood blocks, or you know, there was nothing like that.
Well, I will go to Les in a moment, but I just want to touch on well, there's 2 actually, but tell us about the group of wolves.
Oh yeah.
You forgot, hadn't you?
I admit. There was a lad who was on stag, and he came off one night, and the next morning, because when I was in Afghanistan, mate, I had my tablet and I would watch loads of stuff, mate, UFOs, cryptids, you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff like we all watch now. And he come up to me and he was like, "Bet you wish you were on stag last night." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, he said there was a pack of wolves out there. They were pretty close to the wire. And I was like, I didn't even know Afghanistan had wolves. I still don't, mate. I've never even checked if they do. And he was like, they were huge. And I was like, how big we talking? Huge? And he was like, the back of them would have been above my waist. That's how big they were. And he said there was about 8 to 10 of them roaming about in a pack. And I was like, did they make noise? That's what he said. He said they didn't make a noise. Didn't bark, didn't moan, didn't growl. He said they were just moving silently past the HESCO wall. Because that's when I said, how did you know how tall they were? And when you could count the rings on the HESCO, how tall it was as they walked past. And he said there were like so many up on the HESCO. And when he counted off stag, it was above his waist, the back of one of them.
That's going to be like, I don't know. Depends how tall you are, I suppose, really, doesn't it? How tall is this guy?
Well, he's probably 5'10", my height.
Yeah, so you're going to be looking at 32, 34 inch to his waist, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's big, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
people don't realise
huge,
when you tell me dog's 3 foot tall. It's not. When you actually look at dog sizes and look at them, you know, I think a mastiff dog. Correct me if I'm wrong here, people, but check it out. I think they stand at about 32, 34 inches, and they're some of the biggest dogs, aren't they? In Great Dane. Yeah. So it's huge things, then, weren't they? So where would they have hidden?
I have no clue, Paul, on that one. But like I said to him, what are they eating? that was the scary thing. What are they eating to get that big? Because there was nothing about. No. Like it was that sparse. And because I said to him, where did they go and where did they go to? He said, I don't know where they come from. They just appeared. As he looked left, there was just a pack of, well, like he described them, wolves walking past the HESCO wall. And then they went off round and they
So
disappeared.
I'm assuming he's looking with NVGs then, is he?
Yeah, he was, mate. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. So before we jump to some questions, then, because we'll have 10 minutes on questions from Les. What about the Russian soldiers?
Oh yeah, there was a guy, mate, who we woke up, not me personally, lads woke up screaming, like they woke up because one lad was on the floor screaming one night, and obviously they all jumped out of bed and they went over to him trying to calm him down. And when they calmed him down, he said that he'd woken up and he said there was 6 to 8 Russian soldiers all stood round his bed, and then they started grabbing at him and pulled him out of his bed, which is how he ended up on the floor. And obviously, then he started screaming. Obviously, the lads have jumped up, put the light on, what on earth's going on type thing. And that was the story, mate, that he had, that these Russian soldiers were pulling him out of his bed.
I mean, some of these, Andy, I mean, and it's no less interesting, but he could have just hallucinated. It could have been some.
Oh, he could have, mate. Yeah, he could have, mate. Yeah, it's very possible, mate. Yeah.
Dream. I mean, what you talked about when you were 5 years old, you're actually walking on the landing to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's not
it could have been, mate. Yeah, it could have been, all the stuff that the lads seen and experienced out there. It could have been him processing some trauma. It could have been anything, mate. That it was just an interesting, story that I thought I'd share because it happened when I was there.
Yeah, fascinating. So just before we get to Les, let's just jump back to 5-year-old. And how far away from you was this thing? Is this 6 foot tall, I don't know, orange-coloured being? Yeah,
he must have been about 6'5", Paul. He was massive and muscly. Yeah.
Right.
How far? Oh, well, I tell you what, mate. I was within arm's reach. That's how close we've been. Because obviously, he put his arm out, and his arm, mate, was like his arm was just in front of my nose, so it would have been within arm's reach of him trying to grab me.
And you've got landing lights on because you said you didn't like.
Yeah, landing light was on, mate. Yeah, I didn't like sleeping I didn't like the dark, but yeah, so landing light was on. And so it was in broad day, like this thing.
Black eyes, human shape.
Yeah, jet black. Yeah.
I know you're trying to process a lot, aren't you, as a little boy, 5-year-old, in seconds. And you said it had horns. Yeah, and
the way I describe the horns is, mate, when you see a young bull and its horns are just starting to form, they're not quite. That's what the horns were like.
That's absolutely crazy. So there you go, people in chat. We're just going down loads and loads of different rabbit holes, and what Andy's seen and experienced. I say it every time. It's kind of off the scale of anything I've seen and experienced. I've never seen out like that. I think what I talked about and what I saw in childhood when I wrote Night People was strange and frightening, but that's absolutely terrifying. Honestly, Andy, I really appreciate you sharing this information with us. So I'm glad you messaged us, and I think Les feels the same.
Oh, definitely. And I'm really interested in what was discussing earlier about when you saw this orb outside, and you think it's like reconnaissance. And because you've got your finger on the trigger, as it were, then they're obviously, I don't know for how they do it. They're recognizing this fact, and then it suddenly shoots off.
Incredible,
amazing. And I know there were some questions around that tonight, but I'm just going to go in order that I've got them. So I'll apologise now because I know we're short for time. If I don't get any questions read out, but I'm going to try and get through some of these now. Scotch Mist, what do you think of scrying using mirrors, real or imagination? We'll start with you on that one, Paul.
I think it's real. I think there's something to it. And, I could probably do an hour on this at some point, and I don't mean I'm into scrying, but I think part of my experiences from childhood, I really do think part of the experiences from childhood revolved as an only child and having a little wardrobe in my bedroom, nothing to do with wardrobe, and a dressing table with a mirror in it, and I was looking at that mirror and things happened. So I know we've not got to scrying, Scotch Mist, but I do believe there's some connection with the mirror.
Okay.
I don't know what your views are on scrying.
Yeah, I believe in it. Yeah, especially from, like I said, my grand saw that that Victorian maid with the bonnet on in the mirror. Yeah, so 100%, yeah, I believe in that.
All right, looks like we've got a pat on the back tonight from Al Durham. I have to say, I'm really enjoying Andy's contribution tonight. Down to earth testimony for our strange situations. Thanks, Al.
Brilliant. Thanks, Al. One at most.
Yeah, thank you very much, Al.
Yeah, absolutely bang on, is Al.
Now, here's a good one from Rocky Nuisance. I dabble in perfumery, so smell everything, and everything smells, even light, sort of. Have you perceived any smell changes associated with the phenomena, Andy?
Ooh, good question. Have I? I don't think so, mate. Nothing that would, nothing comes to mind. No, I wish I had, mate. I wish I'd have something for you, but I don't think I have, mate. No, I've never experienced anything, any smell-wise. Nothing that I can remember, mate, anyway, unfortunately.
You know, sometimes you get people talking about tobacco smoke, don't they? With ghostly experiences and metallic tastes with some signs of a phenomena. But I better get on, let him get through some of these questions. Go on, let's.
Sam Shelley, welcome to the show. Sam, if you're still with us at this point, do you think things can bleed through from different dimensions, maybe intentionally?
Yeah,
want to run with that one, Andy?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of that stuff, what happened on Dartmoor was a lot of stuff bleeding through. Maybe potentially that thing that hid the runner, maybe that was something that bled through at a certain point, found him, helped him, then bled back. But yeah, I think that's a real possibility.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. John Paul Body. Hi, Andy. Did you ever come across any reports of big cats or found anything yourself relating to them during your time on Dartmoor or any other places whilst serving?
I didn't find. I never saw anything apart from the sheep that I spoke to about earlier. Now looking back, I kick myself now looking back because I feel like I had a lot of time there. Now that I'm more interested in it, I feel like I wasted a lot of time there. And on weekends and on nights, I could have been out looking for stuff. So I really kick myself now looking back, thinking, what I maybe could have seen or experienced there. But no, mate, I never. Nothing with a big cat.
Would you have been punished, Andy, from your superiors if you'd have been asking questions with other soldiers and trying to gather information about if they'd seen and experienced anything?
No, I don't think I would have been punished, mate. It was more so the fact that, especially when we were on Dartmoor, mate, we were on that course because it was an arduous one. It was hard to pass. Everybody was kind of laser focused. They had one goal in mind, and there was nobody wanted distractions. Nobody wanted to talk about this or that. It was very much, here's the end goal.
Yeah,
and that's what we're
focused on.
Okay, Karen is asking Andy. I think you're spot on with the rock incident. Like that's something still following stroke watching us. Something watching us, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Right, Aldrum is asking, has Andy heard any rumours about strange carcasses or body parts being found on Dartmoor after exercises or bombardments?
Strange carcasses.
I'm assuming you've been sheep carcasses or anything like that.
Yeah, so the only weird ones out were the ones we found.
Yeah,
and like I say, you become so desensitized to be found them every day. There was that many of them. There literally was that many of them. There has to be something out there, big cat wise. 1,000,000% has to be, or something from them out there. They're far too big for, or because they're far too big for a badger or something to take down. You know what I mean? There has to be something predatory out there. But no, mate, no, I never heard any rumours or but then again, I was only there for maybe 10 months a year. And like I say, nobody was based there. It was just us.
Yeah.
Okay, Tino is asking, hello, Andy. Have you spoken to Mike Freebury about pony mutilations on Dartmoor?
No, I haven't, but I never saw any. I never saw any pony mutilations, Theo. I never saw any pony deaths or anything like that. Just sheep.
Just a sheep, was it? Okay, let's have a look. Jan and Andrew are asking, Andy, did you have floating dreams as a very small child? Jan started experiencing seeing things age 6 after floating stopped at 6. Her dad reassured her and not often frightened after that.
No, I can't say I have, but I feel like maybe, maybe stuff could have happened after I was 5. I don't really have that much of a memory after 5, to be honest with you. After I saw that thing, up until later on in life, so maybe some stuff did happen, but I can't say. I have no recollection of that stuff. I don't think I've ever had a floating dream.
Before you get to the next question, because I'll kick myself if I don't do this, I want to say hello to Claire and Pete, who I met today whilst I were out doing a bit of filming. Hi, Claire and Pete. Lovely to meet you. That's it. Go on, Les.
Are they in tonight's chat, Paul? Do you know?
I would think so. Yeah, the new Bobster. The new
Well,
Bobster.
everybody knows Bobster, Paul. So
Yeah.
Okay, and
We'll be meeting.
Sarah Thewell, I don't think we've asked this question, but do you think there is a connection between military land and the paranormal? That's a good question.
Yeah, I do, because I think that's where a lot of you have a lot of heightened emotions there. You know, you have a lot of fear, you have a lot of anger, rage, I suppose. You know, and you also have a lot of pent up energy, especially with the energy that you produce. You've got a lot of kinetic weapons going off. Most military stuff as well is based around water. So with streams or, you know, rivers, something like that. So yeah, I think that, and I also think maybe there's an aspect of, you know, if you believe in ghosts and that type of thing, maybe there's something like familiarity about it. If you were a soldier, you know, you want to go back, see what that type of thing was. But I mean, I can only say what I experienced, and there seems to be a connection there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, Rachel Martin is asking, what about black leopards, the beasts of Exmoor, etc.? You got any thoughts on that one, Andy?
Well, 100%. I think it's a real thing. Has to be, from the things that we saw there. I don't have any. So I'm sorry, I don't have any stories of something that I've seen out there for you. The only thing I saw was the sheep, but I 100% believe there's something out there. It has to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, that's another thing. I kick myself for not looking for prints, or, you know what I mean, when you're mooching about that. Like now, when I think back, I think, how much did I miss by not looking out for those things?
Absolutely. Prime location to do it, weren't you?
Yeah.
But I think you've already said that you was that focused on a job, Andy, at that period, that, you know, this is like come secondary and years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Al Durham, has Andy heard any unusual stories about Otterburn training area or woke up over in Cumbria?
Oh, I spent quite a bit of time up in Otterburn.
Really?
Yeah, because the artillery, particularly my regiment, used to go there for February for like 6 weeks. So I've spent quite a bit of time up in Otterburn. Nothing that I don't think I have, Al. I mean, by all means, mate, I can reach out to lads who are still in, because I still use Otterburn, you know, because everyone thinks I'm a weirdo anyway. So I've got no airs of grace about asking them if they've seen anything in Otterburn. So by all means, I can ask for you, mate, and I'll feed back into Paul if anyone's got anything.
Yep. I can put you in touch with Al if you wanted to. So
yeah.
That's all.
Okay, then Tetrastatic is saying, Andy, me and a friend heard a percussion sound on Dartmoor about 5 years ago, and we couldn't work out from which direction it was coming from.
Interesting.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And I've got to get this one, because if I don't put it on, I know I'll get raps over the knuckles later on. John Leonard Wilson. Amazing. Paul. He is amazing.
Cheers, John.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. And there's the sphere on it's black, but the John's thumbnail is very similar.
Right then, Mike the Disabled Welshman. Hi, Andy. You written any books or of your paranormal supernatural experiences? And if not, do you plan to?
You know what, mate? How crazy that is. You know, when you want about Paul about the haunted wardrobe thing, and I was thinking about that today, being off work. Should I put something to paper?
Maybe you should.
And write something about it, yeah. So I don't have any plans to, Mike, but I was thinking about it today, mate. Yeah, weirdly, coincidence.
Well, there's a lot there. You've kept us entertained for 2 hours. Let's face it, that's had to do much.
Okay, I might just get this last one from Zeno, maybe. And Andy, have anyone in your unit ever heard of the mimic effect? Their own voices or loud ones back at home? Loved ones, sorry, yeah. Are there many with faith within your outfit? There is a reason for being tagged.
I've heard I've heard my I've heard my granddad's voice.
Yeah.
When obviously he passed away when I was 15, and I was trying to I don't know how I was trying to, but I was trying to get in contact with him somehow, and I said something along the lines of, "Is that better?" And then I heard in his voice, "That's perfect, Andrew."
Yeah. And did you hear it audibly or inside your head?
No, mate, audibly.
Right. Wow.
Right. I'm afraid we are at the end of the show, guys, and absolutely brilliant guest tonight. Don't you agree, Paul?
I really do. Thank you. In fact, I'd like, if we do a panel talk at some point, which we will be doing, I'd like you to be included in this, Andy. Really would, because you've
by all means, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd jump on that.
Thank you, Les.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Lee. Andy.
Thank you for all the donations tonight. You guys know who you are. Thanks very much appreciated. Always welcome. As Paul said, we're going to see you're on a live broadcast on Friday, and
last transmission Friday,
yeah,
7 o'clock.
and we're back on here on Sunday. And like I said earlier, thanks again, guys, Andy and Paul, and we'll see everybody in the next stream. We'll see you later. Bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye bye.